Hi, welcome to our first how-to video. We wanted to take some time to show you how maybe you can adapt some toys for your kids at home. At IEP meetings, you'll hear us talking a lot about switches and how we have your kids using switches in the classroom, and we wanted to share some ways that you can do this at home as well. This is a bubble blower that we bought from the dollar store, and we adapted it, and now you can use a switch to turn it on. This is a Christmas toy that has a little button here, and when you press the button, the moose will sing and dance. And we adapted this so that you can activate it with a switch. And this was just something that we bought at the store. It wasn't a specialty item. And when the kid hits the switch, they can turn it off. And they can turn it back on. So we did this with a $1 cord. And then we also have this dog that's from Five Below. It was $5. There's a gear tie, which was maybe $1.50 from Home Depot, and a battery interrupter that we'll show you. And so we adapted this so that it's an art toy, but you could just use it as a dog toy. And when you turn the switch on, this is how we have students color sometimes. So when your child would hit the switch, the dog would move. Or whatever toy you buy. So we want to show you how to do that.
Hi, so now we're going to talk about how you can adapt a regular toy that you can purchase at any toy store. So the particular toy we're looking at today is a little doggy that we found at Five Below. So there is an easy way to adapt this toy to make it switch accessible. What we use is called a battery interrupter. These are really easy to use. So here's the first step. I've already taken the time to unscrew it because all those battery compartments have to, you have to take the screw out. So we're gonna open it up. And the next step is we're gonna just take out one of the batteries. This is the positive end. Now this battery interrupter as it is will not fit into that compartment. So what we needed to do is we needed to trim it down. And you can do that very easily by just trimming it with scissors. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna place this terminal end into the battery compartment. This can be a little tricky, so you just have to play around with it. Some of them are a little easier to place than others. But essentially what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that this positive end is not touching the battery plate on the inside of the toy. Now we're gonna place this inside. We're gonna close it up. And we're gonna try it. Make sure it works. So we're gonna plug in our jelly bean switch that we purchased online into our battery interrupter, which we also purchased online. And we're gonna check it. Oh, we have to turn it on first. That's always important. All right.
You have to hold it.
All right, we have a hiccup here, so let's check because this does happen. Make sure our batteries are in there. Make sure it's on. There it is. So there are a couple things that can go wrong here. You actually just witnessed it. But essentially, I think the copper plate inside wasn't lined up well enough. Now, one of the other areas that you may have a little bit of a challenge with is when you go to close that battery cover, it will not have a little notch for those wires to come out, so it can crimp the wires. So there's a nice little trick that you can use a file to trim a notch. You could use a drill gun. You could, if you're handy with a drill gun, you can just drill a little hole and sort of file it out. Whatever whatever you can, there are multiple ways to do it, but essentially you want to have a little bit of room there for those wires so that when you close it, it doesn't crimp the wire. And then what we'll do is we'll close it back up and it's ready to go. Okay, so we're gonna start by showing you how to adapt one of these kinds of toys where you have to press a foot or an arm to activate. In this case, you have to press here. So one of the challenges with adapting a toy like this is that you cannot simply just use the battery interrupter like we've already shown you. You have to sort of hardwire it. Now before you get, before you allow it to intimidate you, don't, because it's very, very simple. We're gonna work through the steps. So the first step is going to be, we're gonna open that battery compartment. We're gonna take one of the batteries out. And we're gonna make sure it's off. Some of them have an on-off switch. In this case, I don't see one on this little guy. The next thing we're gonna do is we need to try to find that wire. So depending on what toy you have, sometimes you just have to make a little snip. So we know that our wire is going to be running down that leg somewhere. So we kind of snipped right here. We made a small snip and we just kind of dug in there and we felt for a wire. Take your time and be patient with this one. It's actually not that hard. It's just that the wires are thin, so you may not feel it right away. Once you retrieve that wire, I've already kind of worked ahead on this one, but you'll see that I've removed the outer casing of the wire. What you want to do is when you find that wire, you want to actually cut it. So this wire is coming from up here and going to down here. When I snipped it, the wire for the switch for the foot went back into the foot. We want the one that's going up. So that's the wire we're saving. Then you carefully have to strip the outer casing off of each wire. That's one of the bigger challenges because it is so thin. It's very easy to cut the wire if you're using wire strips. So what we essentially did is we used some scissors and we very carefully notched a little hole on there and we just pulled the outer casing off. The next step is we need to rewire it so that we can hook up our switch. So you can purchase these online. Many stores carry them. It's basically an audio-video cable. So essentially what it looks like is a long cable and it has two different ends. It has the male and female end. Essentially what we're looking for is the female end, which is right here, because we want to be able to plug our switch into it. So we're going to cut that. We can just cut it right in half with our scissors. All right, we're going to save that other piece for another project. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of pull that outer casing off that wire. Now this is going to look a little bit different than the battery interrupter, but it really is just as simple. So when you start to pull that outer casing off, it would have made it a little easier if I had a straight blade with me, but I don't. But at home you could use one of those. So once you pull that outer casing off, you're going to see three different wires. You've got a yellow, a red, and a white. We don't need the yellow, so we're going to cut that away. We do not need that. We're going to keep our red and white. We have to strip these wires right now, so that's essentially what I'm trying to just notch it out, and we're going to strip it. So I notched it with the scissors, and we stripped it. Twist them up so they don't go crazy on us. All right. Now here is where it gets interesting. All right, this is the important part. So now we have to hook up one wire to the red. I have some of this, the inside is coming out. So if you can see this. We're having a little difficulties because our wire and our reindeer is not very long. But you'll run into that, that happens. Just take your time. We're just twisting the wires together. So I'm twisting the red wire from the cable with one of the white wires from him. And then I'm going to twist the other white wire from the cable to the other wire on our reindeer. Next step, once you've twisted those wires together.
Can I just take a bit?
Get close. So once you've twisted those wires together, you're going to use some electrical tape and you're going to just tie them up. You just want to make sure that they're completely covered because you don't want these wires touching these wires or it's not going to work correctly. So we're just going to tape them off. So you should have 2 little bundles of tape, one for each set of wires. All right. All right, once you've done that, I have a little more wire exposed, so I just want to cover that. It's right at the base of this one. It's hard to see, but you just want to make sure all the wire is covered because you don't want them to touch at any point. It will not operate properly. All right, so that's it. So we've got those taped together. And then what we're going to do is just to keep it a little bit more sturdy. Let me cut this outer casing real quick. Just tape it all up. Just tape it together. What we want to do is we want to check and make sure everything's working properly. Put the battery back in. If the toy has an on-off switch, turn it on. And we're going to take our switch and plug it in to the wire we just attached to our reindeer. And we know immediately it started to operate, so it's working correctly. All right, so that's great news. Now that we know that it works, we're going to gently just tuck it back up inside. And you can throw a couple stitches in there and that'll make it nice and snug. But that is how you adapt a singing, dancing reindeer.
So we hope you found our video helpful, and we just want to recap a couple things. First, in order to operate these toys, you will need a switch. This switch was purchased online for about $65. That will be your most expensive purchase when doing this. We showed you how to use a battery interrupter. These can be purchased online. They're called battery interrupters. This one was about $10. You can make your own, but that's for another video. These are used for toys that have an on-off switch, such as this little dog that we got at Five Below. It has a switch that you can just turn it on and off and it will stay on. You can use a battery interrupter for that. These battery interrupters are for AA and AAA batteries, but they also work on the C and D batteries as well. For a toy that has a press here option that does not stay on all the time, you will not be able to use the battery interrupter. You will need to use one of these stereo plugs. This was purchased for $1 at the dollar store. And finally, we showed you the gear tie. This is latex free and you can just mold it in any direction you want. We purchased this at Home Depot for 2 packets under $5. We hope you enjoyed our video, and hopefully we'll have some more in the future.